As football is upon us, it's always good to catch up. We'll have him on during the NFL season. Lloyd Vance, a contributor, writer, editor, does a great job with the NFL Network. How you been, pal?
Doing great, Q. It's an exciting time of year, man.
It is. It's very exciting. I'll throw this out to you right now. How much, as far as the Gordon situation, do you really believe there are multiple teams out there that are inquiring about him? And do you think Cleveland, even though he's talented, is he too much of a headache where Cleveland would decide to trade him?
Well, Q, I think there is some kind of market out there for Josh Gordon, but let's not forget he's been out of the league for about 2 years now, and he does have an opportunity with the Cleveland Browns, but they have that new regime in there, and it's going to be up to Hugh Jackson if he wants to keep him around. With guys like Terrell Pryor kind of emerging, there may not be a spot for him, but I think right now they're going to hold on to him, kind of see what he can do. Let's not forget he's not suspended anymore, but he has to serve some games out.
So then this kind of goes to the other question, and again, I know it's not you when I say hear me out. It is far-fetched, but if there are multiple teams that are inquiring about him, why wouldn't the Eagles maybe just put in a phone call? I don't think it can hurt him. I'm not saying they go gung-ho and make a move for him, but I'm saying it's evident they don't trust some of these wide receivers that they have.
You're so right. And in the last couple of games, I've really watched the Eagles, and they just have no explosiveness the way it scares you. And they're reaching for straws right now with bringing in Dorial Green Beckham, a guy who has troubled background. And at Titans, they really don't have anything anyway, so why would they give him away for Dennis Kelly? So, yes, the Eagles are hurting for some receiving talent, and why not take a look at him? It's really not going to cost them much, maybe a sixth-rounder or so.
How do you explain Rueben Randle? Because it does, and I give Peter King a lot of credit. Everyone just denounced what he said about a month ago on a ton of outlets, basically that Randall's not going to make the team, and it does look like right now he might not make the team. And I'm just wondering how do you account for this? I mean, is it just the lack of desire? He's talented, but he's also an enigma at times. You can't figure the guy out.
Yeah, and that's the quandary of a college football star, Q. He's a guy that at LSU was just unstoppable, and he's just never gotten together in national football. The Giants gave him chance after chance, but he had just so many big drops in key situations for them that Jerry Reese couldn't keep him around. And yes, the Eagles were willing to pick him up at a cheap price, but right now he's competing with a guy, Chris Givens. Both of them really aren't doing anything, and you may see both of them leave the Eagles sometime during cutdown day.
All right, let's stick with the NFC East. I think it's a huge week for Victor Cruz. He did not play in last Saturday's game against the Bills. He dressed for warm-ups. It looks like they're inching him a little closer and closer to actually seeing some live action since he tore that patella tendon back in 2014. I think if they got a 75%, 80 healthy Victor Cruz, I think what Victor Cruz needs to do is go out there, catch the ball, run a route, take a hit, pop back up, and then be able to practice the following week. If he can't get out on the field, and Coughlin used to hate this when guys can't practice, and if he's not out there, I mean, do you think that the Giants will sever ties with Victor Cruz if they just feel, look, he just can't produce at all?
Yeah, Q, and I think all along it's kind of been kind of a loyalty type of situation because he played so well for them, particularly when they won the last Super Bowl. But, you have to wonder if that patellar tendon that he had, it was just so horrific here in Philadelphia when it happened, and you just have to wonder, is he going to be able to come back from it? And now you have young receiver Sterling Shepard coming over from Oklahoma in the draft. He's kind of emerging. So Victor Cruz fighting for a spot, and as any veteran, he can't play special teams, so there's very limited spots for him.
All right, let's again stick with the NFC East. Des Bryant suffering concussion. He believes he'll be ready to go week 1. The Cowboys against the Giants, the Cowboys have been, if it's possible, relatively quiet, if you will, during the summer months, during preseason thus far. But I'll tell you right now, we might be looking at the Des and Dak Prescott show going forward. I mean, this kid, I understand it's preseason, and I know people shouldn't get all up in arms because I tell them not to, but even he was doing this. I would venture to guess he can do this maybe against some first team's defenses. I mean, this kid Prescott looks like he can play a little bit.
Yeah, and what you like about Dak and what I liked about him coming out of Mississippi State was he's a guy that can make plays with his legs as well as his arm. And he's not overmatched coming to the National Football League, coming to the SEC. Let's not forget that's probably the best minor league out there for the NFL, and he's 22 of 27 right now, 338 yards passing, and he has 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he's doing a very good job, and Jerry Jones is very happy to have a kid come in, a mid-round draft pick, and he's making good. So we're going to see how this plays out if Romo can hold up in the regular season, but they have to think that they're prepared if Dak Prescott goes out there.
And then how about the Washington Redskins sitting their starters? It does look like Gruden feels as though he knows what he has with this offense. More or less, let me ask you this. Going into the season, if you were to look at Kirk Cousins, what's the likelihood that Cousins repeats the same type of season he had last year? Is it highly likely, or in your eyes, is it unlikely?
Well, I don't know if he'll have the huge numbers like he had before, but he's clearly a starter. He's more comfortable there. So you have to wonder about urgency, particularly when he gets that franchise deal and all that money. But this team has a lot of talent. Let's not forget on offense. They have a great tight end. They have a pretty good running back, and it's a very good receiver. So, I think he can put up some good numbers. And right now the Redskins are the champs, and you have to think they're going to defend that title.
If you look at what is also going down over the last several weeks, and of course Jazeera reports with the players having to talk, not having to talk. I find it interesting because ultimately, I don't want to assume who's taken PEDs and who hasn't, but you almost get this feeling that the guys that they're talking to, I wouldn't put it past maybe 1 or 2 of them that they haven't done something like that. And I'm just wondering, as a whole, do you feel that the NFL is eventually going to maybe next offseason or maybe talk to the players union and say, listen, we're going to go a different route if guys are pegged with steroids, if guys have been linked to any PED use, and maybe they're going to be a little more stern, because it always goes back to Roger Goodell kind of picking and choosing how many games said player is going to be suspended or how many games this guy's going to get nailed for. Like the whole Josh Brown incident. I mean, you look at Josh Brown with the Giants, he's only been hit with a 1-game suspension. But I'm just curious, your thoughts on the PED use in the NFL and how can they can try to, I guess you can say, keep it very fair when they're given punishment here.
Well, Q, it's the NFL's dirty little secret, and they know that performance-enhancing drugs have always been out there for decades, and it's something some players are going to use to try to get an edge. And it wouldn't surprise me, as you said, some of those guys that are on that list may have used something in the past. But right now with that Algier type investigation, I think a lot of it's hearsay, and it's going to be trying hard to prove. But the NFL, probably when the CBA comes up, I think around 2021. That's when they'll start talking about negotiations in terms of penalties being more stricter for PEDs. But definitely the NFL is going to take an eye at it. And as you were talking about domestic violence, any hot-button issue they're going to try to jump on and make a good face out in public. So we'll see how Goodell acts on this one. But it's a very interesting thing to watch, particularly with James Harrison.
Yeah, and the problem, too, going back to the Brown situation, is that when they implemented the new rule in 2014, first-time offenders, boom, you're already nailed with a 6-game suspension. Couple more for you. Typically, you never see teams carry 4 quarterbacks, and I'm looking at the Jets right now. You got Hackenberg, you got Fitzpatrick, you got Geno Smith, you got Bryce Petty, and I'm wondering, is it possible that the Jets will turn around and maybe I don't know how I can be delicate with this one. I've seen players before who have been put on the IR and teams have, quote, misused the IR. Can you see the Jets maybe just placing a player on IR and not giving up that roster spot, carrying 3 quarterbacks instead of 4?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because now they have the return IR and not the year-long stash on that. So what I see with them doing, and we know Fitzpatrick's definitely the starter there, but I think it's going to come down to Petty and Geno Smith. And do they want to keep paying Geno Smith? Of course, he's on a rookie deal. So I think in the end, you'll probably see Smith or Petty get cut. And then, of course, Hackenberg will be probably they won't risk putting him on a practice squad. He'll probably be the 3rd quarterback. So watch for those 2 middle quarterbacks that I talked about there. And it may be Geno Smith leaving because, let's face it, the guys that came in, Todd Bowles and them, they didn't draft him.
That's a great point because the Jets this would require the Jets to basically put him on the 53-man roster before you place him on the IR. And if they carry over to 53, again, then basically you have an opportunity of losing someone, even a practice squad player on the 90 roster. You're giving up a player you might want to use elsewhere down the road. And you're right. I don't know. It seems from what I'm hearing, the sense is that if there's going to be an odd man out, it would be Geno Smith, which to me, I mean, think about that. If this kid never gets cracked in the jaw, maybe we're not having this conversation. But ultimately, I don't think he's an NFL caliber quarterback.
Yeah, he's got to learn the game. He came in there with kind of some smugness after he had a little success, and he just was not doing his homework. I was talking to some guys up in New York, and they said he was kind of coming in ill-prepared for those games, and it showed after his first initial rookie starts, and he just wasn't the same guy. So they have Fitzpatrick firmly in there now, and he's on page with Marshall and Decker, so they do have some talent there, but of course that's always going to be the Patriots division.
What's your thoughts on RG3? New home, new environment, new system here with Cleveland. Kind of turned back the clock the other day, and I'm just wondering, was it just a question of, okay, he just needed a change of scenery, he's got a lot of football life left in him, or I guess if you're an RG3 or Browns fan, should you kind of temper your enthusiasm a little bit?
Well, Q, right now everything's looking rosy, and he seems to have had a taste of some humble pie because let's not forget the Redskins kind of gave up on him, and he didn't play at all last year. So I think Cleveland gave him a new lease on life, and he has some guys around him that can make some plays for him, particularly Corey Coleman, the rookie coming in, Terrell Pryor, who we talked about earlier. This team being built by Sashi Brown and this organization with Hugh Jackson at the helm seems to be turning a corner, but I want to see them week one against the Eagles when it's not so friendly fire and they're going against a team that's really playing a non-vanilla defense against them.
Yeah, and when you look at it, I mean, that's not a gimme game for the Eagles. I mean, it really isn't. And we talked about, out of all the teams in the NFC East, when you look at the first 3 or 4 games to open up the season, I mean, Giants got a tough little stretch. I think they need to go 3-1. The Eagles have a tough little stretch. I mean, the schedule makers made it out the right way. Washington, when they open up their season against Pittsburgh, and then the Giants taking on the Cowboys. So, there's that first month or so, there's no gimme games. I mean, we've talked about this over the years. You can certainly, you're not winning the Super Bowl in September, but you can lose the division. You can lose a playoff spot in September if you come out of the gate slow.
So true, and you don't want to go 1-3, 0-4, and the Eagles. That's going to be a real game. Really, it's a true test for them because let's face it, they're secondary. A lot of question marks out there, and RG3 could always throw a deep ball. So that's going to be an exciting game. And as you said, the first couple weeks of the season really are going to paint the picture around the National Football League.
All right, my friend, I appreciate a couple moments. Have a good week. We'll be chiming in every week with you. Good insight as always, and look forward to speaking next week.
All right, thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance, NFL contributor, NFL Network. Good stuff. Good follow on Twitter as well.